there is value in just identifying a gap and saying, you need to go in this direction. I can't help you with it. So you may need an attorney. So yesterday, I'm a pilot and I was flying with a guy that I know but don't fly well with, and he's on his way to Africa Friday for 5 weeks. A very cool trip. But he's got a 1-year-old, and we're talking, and I just said, Tron, do you have estate planning documents? No, need to get those. Do you have a financial plan? I think we actually started talking about gold and silver in his investments.
Okay.
So the good news is we had 4.5 hours together, and we got him set up on Right Capital. I got him to do his vanilla docs while we were there. So he's printing them today and getting them notarized. And I hooked him up with an insurance guy so he could get some life insurance. You don't have to be an expert to know somebody has a life insurance gap. Simple math.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a genius to know that you don't have documents, but you have a spouse, assets, and a child. You need documents and basics for a financial plan. So I think if we do our job well, the tool doesn't require a lot of skills. It gives you the ability to step into a place where if you have skills, you can exercise them. But if you don't have a lot of skills, it still lets you add a lot of value.
Hey, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. This week on the show, Steve Lockshin is with me for a conversation about innovation and disruption. Now, Steve is the founder of AdvicePeriod, a firm seeking to reinvent wealth management with an innovative approach and business model. Steve is also the founder of a company called Vanilla, which is an AI-powered estate planning advisory platform that is gaining a lot of traction in our space. Now, it is possible that you're going to find yourself hate watching or hate listening to this episode because Steve is challenging many of the models and core assumptions of the wealth management industry. But that's how innovation works, right? We do something a certain way for a long time because it's generating results. And then all of a sudden, disruption happens and everything changes quickly. And as you'll hear Steve say, he believes things are about to change radically and rapidly. So buckle up. This is going to be a fun episode. Now, before we get to the conversation with Steve, please do make sure you take a moment to subscribe to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford everywhere on the internet, or you can shoot us an email, podcast@finservmarketing.com. Okay, let's get to the conversation with Steve Lockshin. Well, Steve Lockshin, so wonderful to see you. Welcome to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So I want to start off in an unusual way for this episode because you're kind of the second person that I'm aware of or that's declared that you jump in the water every day. You kind of start your day out on the water. I had somebody as a guest for another show that we produce who's out in California, goes surfing every day with his co-founder at his company and so forth. And I'm like, well, let's talk about your morning habit, which you go wake surfing every day. So kind of surfing, a little different. So first of all, how did this come about? And why is this your habit to start the day?
Well, to be clear, it's my summer habit, and I'm glad you clarified wake surfing because the surfing dude, if he watches this, will be offended if I say surfing because wake surfing is not real surfing according to surfers.
Okay.
I ended up, so I'd been summers in Seattle for years. We took off like 10 years. When we hired the CEO of Vanilla, he lived on a lake, which I thought was way too far out from where I used to live in Seattle in summers. But when I went out to meet him to close the deal, I was just amazed. And so I started looking right around there, ended up half a mile up the lake from him. Started wake surfing 3 summers ago, and he and I are out in the water along with some other guys every morning at 7 a.m. Unfortunately, I'm back in Arizona right now, so I'm not in the water in the morning. But when I'm in Seattle, I'm in the water every morning.
That's wild. That's wild. And was it something you just like, you picked it up, right? So this is not like something like you've been doing since you were a young kid. Like it's how hard, obviously it was easy enough to pick up, or you're just like a hyper athletic guy, maybe a little.
No. So everybody we take out, save my one friend who probably is not listening, who couldn't get up the first day, but everybody gets up their first day. So it's not that hard. And if you're a snowboarder or you're a skateboarder, then it's a bunch of 60-year-old guys trying to do 360s and jumps. And you spend the summer just trying stuff. And now we're all foiling
Yeah.
and learning how to foil behind the boat or e-foil, which is fun.
Well, that's great. And you know, the risk of like massive injury wiping out into the water versus wiping out on a mountain, way less. So
Well, and you're going 12 miles an hour. So
this is true.
in water.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually kind of good. Maybe I'll take up wake surfing. There's a huge lake culture here in Austin. People are out on the water all the time. Similar thing. And I live in a neighborhood where Lake Austin actually, it's a river. It's a Colorado river, but it comes through my neighborhood. It's called River Place, the neighborhood I live in. And so, yeah, maybe I'll take this up. This sounds awesome. Well,
that's awesome.
Thanks for showing. Well, why do you start your day this way? By the way, it's kind of an interesting. It's not an eat the frog thing. You know, you talk to lots of people who like eat the frog, do the worst thing, but you're starting out like getting out and playing in the morning.
I mean, well, I won't say it's eat the frog because it's 50 to 60 degrees when we go out. The water though is 75 to 80, so it's awesome. I don't know. It's just a great way to wake up. You know, you're in the water. You're getting some exercise. You're hanging out with friends. You're at your desk by 8:30 or 9, and you've done a bunch of exercise and had a lot of fun and tried new things. You know, it's a challenge yourself kind of thing, but fun.
I love it. Well, fantastic. Well, let's shift into.
Wait, this whole podcast isn't going to be about wake surfing?
You know what? It could be actually. Why not? Look, people aren't just tuning in to be all business and boring, right? They want to hear some good stuff. Maybe they find some other stuff that they can work their way into. We've talked about awesome hairlines, like people like me who are aerodynamic before on this pod. So,
definitely helps in the water. It doesn't get in your face. It's much better.
I never have a bad hair day here. All right, so let's shift gears into the meat of this show. You know, and what can only be described as a wild coincidence, Casey from your team reached out to pitch having you on the show. Shortly after, I had actually just reached out to Gene Farrell at your company, Vanilla, the CEO of Vanilla, and he introduced me to Emily Tran, the new VP of marketing there. So we were talking about doing some podcast related stuff. I'm like, this is wild. Like within a week of each other, like this is insane. I was like, oh, hey Casey, just so you know, I'm already talking to the Vanilla team and so forth. So I'm excited. This is like the universe's way of saying Steve and Mike have to hang out for a bit.
Funny.
So let's dive into Vanilla. You know, you've had a keen focus on estate planning for kind of most of your career here. So I wonder if you could share like how this passion arose and what led you to found Vanilla and why estate planning has just been this thing for you.
I mean, I started way back in the insurance business, and the guy I worked for is one of the top producers in the country. Yeah. And his comment was, any idiot can sell an insurance policy, but understanding how to fund it is really the value. And so we were doing all big estate planning cases or deferred comp. Yeah. And so it was very tax driven, and you know, it didn't take long to figure out the impact of estate taxes. So early in my career, we started focusing on it, partially because other people weren't, partially because I was intellectually curious about it.
Yeah.
And then post 08, I had kind of gotten tired of waking up every quarter, fingers crossed that we beat the benchmarks, and decided I'm going passive. Like the effort's not worth it to try and beat the benchmarks. And certainly the cost isn't worth it, but we can make massive differences for taxable estates with good estate planning. And it was easy to highlight a 40% impact immediately by moving $1 outside the estate. So that became our differentiator. And again, there was intellectual curiosity, and it was a great way to land new clients, and changed our fee model, and all kinds of stuff came out of it. And so Vanilla was a solution that I needed just to automate stuff we were doing manually. And then I showed some of my friends in the industry, and they said, I want it. And then all of a sudden we got VC funding, and it's a business.
I love it. You know, it's funny. I had actually a couple of times I've had Roger Pine, the founder of Holistiplan, which you may or may not be familiar with, on the show, and others. And one of the conversations we had kind of sounds like a very similar kind of epiphany there. Like, I want to solve this problem, so like maybe we can build it, right, to solve our own problem. Then, okay, let's take it out to the market and help other people with this. But he hinted, or we talked kind of more, not just hinted, we dove into a topic that you hinted at, that you just touched the surface on, was, you know, there's only so much wiggle room you can do with asset management, right? In terms of like, okay, we can beat the market, hit the market, or underperform the market. Yeah, we can do some things there. But man, with proper tax planning, I can show you a really big impact, right? On things. I can show you that we saved you tens of thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the same is true here, right? The impact can be really seen immediately before we even start investing dollars. Like we've made some really big.
There's a healthy number of my clients we don't invest any money for because they are either we have a lot of private equity sponsors, so they manage their own money, or real estate folks who manage their own money. But the estate plan, you said hundreds of thousands. In our case, it's hundreds of millions.
Yeah,
for clients that we work with.
That's great. That's great. And do you lead with that? When you're talking to, this is really interesting. I'm trying to your business is I wouldn't say it's unique, but it's different than the average financial advisor who may be listening to the show or watching the show. Do you find it's important to lead with that conversation? Like, hey, listen, let's talk about estate planning. I know we're going to talk about investing and some of the other things, but let's talk about that, like where we can have a big impact and you're going to see it right off the bat.
Yes. So my first question is, what's your total net worth? My second question is, how much is inside your state versus outside your state? And that sets up the rest of the discussion from there. So I lead with it. And then even once folks are clients, the periodic meetings, I purposely say periodic because I don't believe in quarterly meetings, are very focused on everything but the investments for 90% of the meeting. And then the investments are a footnote, if you will, because it's a commodity.
Yeah.
And the irony is in the industry, and for the folks who are listening that are investment focused, you are a commodity. Be aware. And everybody goes out and says, oh, I can get you a better asset allocation, or I can find better funds than everybody else. But go look at S&P SPIVA or the Morningstar Active Passive Barometer and come on, dude. Be real.
Nobody likes to hear that they're a commodity, but it is true. And we've talked about it on the show.
My wife tells me all the time.
Yeah. There's lots of dudes like you. You're easily replaceable. I think I've been told that too, right? It's like, look, every financial advisor out there has access to the same stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Like pretty much you've got all the same products. You're charging about the same price. And you're able to do about the same stuff. You have the same type of vehicles, in terms of the investments in, right? Investable and retirement assets and all that type of stuff. So, to your point, that is very much commoditized. Sure, you can.
It's the definition of commodity,
right? It's the same product, same price, right? For the most part, right? Exactly. So it really makes sense to have these deeper conversations and so forth. And so, one of the things that's interesting and exciting to me. And I don't know how deep you want to go on vanilla, but the democratizing that, bringing that to advisors who may not be super skilled at estate planning. I think every advisor talks about it a little bit, right? Like, okay, we're going to invest for things that are important to you, retirement, college, those types of things. And how much do you want to have left over in order to, leave people or leave the causes that you care about, right?
Just minimize taxes. I mean, it isn't always about, certainly for people that have been entrepreneurial, most of it is about optimization. It is not about leaving a lot behind. Yeah. So, your choices are, you can go to your heirs, you can go to charity, or you can go to government. Most people don't want option 3. So how do we optimize for the first 2?
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's really smart. It's really smart. So for the advisors who are not super, call it strong in that area. Let's use strong. How is vanilla strengthening them? How does it set up so that the advisors can get better and be more equipped to service their clients when it comes to estate planning?
Yeah, you use the term democratizing, but I'll actually change it to an exoskeleton. So to me, it's giving them tools so that they can help their clients with the basics of estate planning without having to be familiar. So one of the things that gets in the way are advisors saying, well, I don't understand this stuff, or I don't know it.
Right.
And there is value in just identifying a gap and saying, you need to go in this direction. I can't help you with it. So you may need an attorney, or you need, so yesterday I'm a pilot and I was flying with a guy yesterday that I know, but don't fly well with. And he's on his way to Africa Friday they're flying there for 5 weeks, very cool trip. But He's got a 1-year-old, and we're talking, and I just said, Tron, do you have estate planning documents? No, need to get those. Do you have a financial plan? I think we actually started talking about gold and silver in his investments.
Okay.
And so the good news is we had 4.5 hours together, and we got him set up on Right Capital. I got him to do his vanilla docs while we were there. So he's printing them today and getting them notarized. And I hooked him up with an insurance guy so he could get some life insurance. You don't have to be an expert to know somebody has a life insurance gap. Simple math.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a genius to know that you don't have documents, but you have a spouse, assets, and a child. You need documents. And basics for a financial plan, which everyone's doing, again, has become commoditized. So I think if we do our job well, the tool doesn't require a lot of skills. It gives you the ability to step into a place where if you have skills, you can exercise them. But if you don't have a lot of skills, it still lets you add a lot of value.
I love the fact that story is fantastic. The fact that within 4 hours, this guy's got things moving, right? That is what is making like living in today's world so exciting, right? Because that would have taken meetings, multiple meetings, paralegals, and some other stuff a mere 20 years ago, right? To get that type of stuff moving, and the fact that you could direct him to some place and he could fire it up probably on his phone, right? And
we did it on my iPad. More technology. Starlink makes things really easy. High-speed internet. We're getting everything done, and it was very productive. And my answer back to the value an advisor brings. I said, Sean, call me anytime you have a question, but let's just put a note on your phone. We'll fly together probably once a year. Just check in with me annually, and we'll make sure that. But that's even going to go away, because Vanilla will check in and go, these are your fiduciaries. Is this who you still want as your fiduciaries? This is your insurance coverage. Is it the right amount based on these inputs, or do you want to update that? So all the automation that is available to us is going to start allowing clients to interact with the software as if it's us, making us look good, allowing us to do more with less, but making sure that most importantly, the clients get the fundamental service they need.
It's fantastic. I love the fact that this opens new doors, and you just demonstrated it in a really easy way. You're, kind of in a confined environment, stuck with something. Like, we're gonna be hanging out with each other for a while because we're up on an airplane, right? No place to go, right? So you're a captive audience, literally here. Yep. But every advisor and every person, frankly, in business has those situations. You hear the proverbial elevator pitch. You're on a golf course. I have a high school student and a college student. Occasionally I'm at events that are related to the kids. You're like with other parents, so you end up talking about stuff, right? These conversations are going to come up. And if you're an advisor, having a tool simple as that to ask the questions and point them in the right direction, it's fantastic. I love it.
The guy that I used to work for in the insurance business, his name's Alan Meltzer, well known in the industry. And I'll never forget, he came back from a charity board meeting the night before, and a guy who sat next to him for years at these board meetings died suddenly. Not at the board meeting, but died suddenly. And did not have enough insurance, did not have an estate plan. So his spouse, with kids, young kids, had to sell the house, get a job. Everything changed.
Wow.
And in his mind, it wasn't that he missed an opportunity to sell insurance, because he graduated to the point in his career, like I have, that I'm more interested in helping people than making a dollar. Like, I'm not going to charge Sean. I just want to make sure he's covered.
Yeah.
He said, what an epic failure I am, because all I had to do was sell this guy a term policy or ask the question to make sure he was covered, and it wouldn't have been a disaster for his family. And so many people in our industry don't ask the question or do the insurance analysis, which is a joke. It takes a minute because they don't get paid on insurance. So they focus on what they get paid on. We call ourselves advisors. We're not advisors. We're investment salespeople that care about assets under management, which is, a real hot button for me.
We got to get to that later. I can't wait to talk about it. Yeah.
So for me, if we're not asking every client, do you have a plan, and making sure they have a plan available to them, and you can send out as many as you need to through the vanilla software, and they're good documents. And we went to great lengths to make sure they're very good documents. Now I can make sure that anybody that I touch or know, as long as I ask the question, is covered. And I have nothing to sell. I'm like, hey, you're my friend. No problem. I'm going to send you a link. If you have any, it'll walk you right through. If you have any questions, call me. I'll help you. I don't need to charge you a fee. Just get your plan done.
Yeah.
So that your family's protected.
Yeah. I love it. It's funny on your thing about financial advisors. Maybe we'll dive into this a little bit deeper later. One of my things I've shaken my fist at, for the industry, it's like relatively few advisors will advise on investing in private businesses, right? Like lots of people want to get into angel investing and invest in, local restaurants or whatever that is that they do, sure, or real estate or whatever. It's like, well, aren't you a financial advisor? It's like, well, no, technically I'm an investment advisor, or if I'm an independent broker dealer, you're a broker. You're a registered rep. You're actually technically a broker. You're not actually a financial advisor, even though that's what it says on your business card, right? And I don't say that to besmirch financial advisors. It's like, understand what you're doing, but also understand what you're leaving on the table here in terms of business opportunity for sure. But as you just articulated, the ability to serve the client and make sure the client's actually okay and living up to or working towards the, what you set out to do or you're purported to set out to do, which is protect their financial future and allow them to have good sleep at night factor.
Yeah. Just imagine if you went to your doctor and, let's say they're an ENT and you have a giant whopping cancer right here. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm an ENT. I'm going to deal with your nose. I'm not worried about that. They just don't pay attention because they're not getting paid on it. And that's a fundamental issue in our industry.
Yeah.
And it's too easy to get into our industry too.
It might be. Well, it's funny, the conversation I just had yesterday before we clicked record on this, I was talking about how we had some technical issues with the podcast I was recording yesterday. And we were talking about how, effectively this is an industry that, hires thousands and thousands of people every year. Anyone who can fog a mirror and says they want to be a financial advisor will be put into a training program. Now, 85% of them don't make it to year 4, don't make it past year 4. They wash out, and whoever remains, has a good, solid business, good career likely. But to your point, right?
Doesn't mean they're a good advisor. It just means they're good salesperson.
Yeah, that's right. They're good salespeople, right? They got their start as salespeople. And that's, going back to what we were talking about before, where some commoditization. So you're selling the same product at the same price as everybody else. And there's, I can't shake a stick without hitting more of that person, right? There's no end to the supply. Speaking of the supply, like supply of clients, I want to dive into something you said, because I think it's really, you said in our prep call that I think it's really inspirational and also could change the direction of some of the advisors' lives here. And this related to estate planning. Is you mentioned that early on in your career, you learned that you'd rather hear no from a $2 million client than a $200,000 client. Now,
I'm dating myself. That's when milk was a nickel.
Yes.
That's cool.
But you can rather hear no from a $20 million client than I don't know. Figure out whatever you feel is awesome to you. But the point is, hey, if you're going to get a no from a big deal, right? And on the surface, that sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like, of course, tons of business wisdom there. But I think too often, like, we sell ourselves short, right? When we're out pitching for clients and so forth, whether you're an advisor or I produce podcasts and videos for firms here. You think, I don't know, that company's too big or that deal's too big. Have you always approached business that way, or is this something you developed over time? Like a new muscle you developed at some point in time?
I think I was too dumb to know otherwise. So back to insurance, I started going after big stuff early. I mean, I'm in my early 20s, and I'm, working with pro athletes and General Dynamics and Circuit City. And so part of it was getting to meet people, but the other thing was playing the long game. So back to Alan Meltzer, he's getting a lot of props today. I went and bird dogged, got into big companies, brought him in and shut the F up at the meeting and listened. And I split the fee with him. And it was the right long game to play because I learned so much in that environment that after a couple of years, like, why? Oh, you can't go to that meeting? I got it by myself. Oh, I actually don't need him. I can do the next one by myself. Right. And then all of a sudden I'm by myself. But I've learned skills that you can't learn. It was like I told the kids that worked for us in 2008. you got the best education. And fortunately, you're poor, so you had nothing to lose. But you can't buy this education. And that's what I got by going after large clients. Like they don't suffer fools. These are all successful people. And you had to be on your stuff. And back then we didn't have the internet. So, he'd say section 101 of the code, or, 64368 or whatever. And I'd write it down and I'd go back and tax facts would come off the shelf and I'd just read up on stuff and learn. And that it made me a better advisor and it allowed me to go after bigger fish.
I love it. And, looping in the vanilla component of this, right? Where, it's an opening of a door, right? You could go into that bigger client. Whereas before you're like, what do I have to offer this person? I'm trying to get their portfolio so I can manage it and I can, earn my AUM fee or whatever. Well, now you're coming at somebody with a real solution. And as you mentioned, it's not uncommon for people who are high net worth to not have proper estate plan stuff in place. Because
I have a client worth $1.5 billion who had an irrevocable trust in place and swears he had his core documents, a will in place, but nobody could find it. And it didn't exist. Now we got taken care of, but this was and there was a guy I knew for 4 years before he asked me, hey, can you help me with my stuff? But just because you're very successful doesn't mean you've thought through all these things. You can be very, very good at one thing. You may be a great pitcher. Doesn't make you a great investment advisor.
Right.
You can be super rich because you're a great pitcher, but you're a great pitcher.
Yeah. It's so important. We make these assumptions about that other person. Well, they got their stuff together. They must be amazing. It's like, then you find out, to your point, they don't have an estate plan, or, maybe they don't know about their, traditional investments, right? They're great at the business that they do. But if you looked at their portfolio, it's a hot mess, right? Or if you look at their insurance situation, it's a hot mess. So maybe they could use a friend. They could use an actual advisor in there. All right, now I want to shift. Other than softening you up at the beginning with your wake surfing stories, now we're going to get into the fun stuff where I'm gonna let you cook on some some of your passion stuff. You're kind of like going back to the vanilla, going back to your early days of going after bigger clients and so forth. What I've observed from just in our conversations and in kind of doing my deep dive on your LinkedIn and so forth, you don't seem like the type of guy who's afraid to take on big problems. So one of the things you surfed well, it's a big passion for you, is that the AUM model is kind of broken here. All right, for advisors and I just want to get your thoughts on why is it broken? Because we've had other people on the show talk about, listen, AUM is probably not the best model. There's all these other models and so forth, but you really kind of come in hot on this type of stuff. So I could just clear the floor and let you go to town. Let's say, why is it broken?
I mean, I don't think it's going to take long to explain this. It's really a conflict of issue topic.
Yeah.
So conflicts are a problem. You give a human a choice, they will usually make the one that is better off for them, right, short term and certainly financially. And those are conflicts of interest. And so when you are an AUM focused advisor, and I'll come back because there's a place where it is appropriate, but when you're an AUM focused advisor, you care about, how do I get more AUM? That's how I get paid. When you are a fee focused advisor, you care about service because that's how you get paid. They continue to pay your fee because you deliver the service. So it aligns the interests between the two parties. Whereas, and the reason our industry is so poorly thought of, in the surveys, is because of all the conflicts that exist. And the reason there's, such a rich compliance environment is because people do stupid things because of conflicts of interest. And so that's why I think it's a problem. Where I think it makes sense is if you're an advisor and you're starting off with someone small who is increasing their net worth, and along with it, probably some complexity, then it does allow you to grow together. So I used to say, and now I don't really service clients in that stage as much, but I used to say, we'll charge you basis points until we're either doing a lot more than just investing, and we are, you're out of your accumulation phase. So if you're 27 and you sold your business and you're retiring, you're out of your accumulation phase. I don't care if you're 27. So now we're in maintenance and lifestyle, and that's a service component. So I think, unfortunately, the significant majority of folks in our industry are paid on AUM, and it is a great business model. I mean, there's no better business that has no cap, pretty much grows consistently over time, has very low overhead. Any idiot can get in the business, and you can make a freaking ton. And now they trade at stupid multiples. So, I mean, it's a great business. For the advisor.
I like that. It is. It's when you explain it to people, they're like, "Wait a minute, there's a business where I get recurring revenue. Like no matter stock market up, down, still making money. I make more money if the market goes up, even if I brought on no new clients and sold no new product. I made actually more money this year, and nothing else changed. I didn't provide extra service or do anything else. It's pretty amazing, right? And it's gonna come in every year." And as long as you can maintain the relationships with those clients and occasionally you bring on a new one, awesome stuff. So people just lose their mind. It's kind of like being in the software business, but it's just like a never-ending royalty, right? But to your point, there is a challenge, right? So AUM fans will point out like, well, it's less conflict of interest here than it being a commission-based thing where they're legitimately selling product. At least my revenue goes up if your AUM goes up. That would feel better.
Even if I'm an idiot and the market goes up.
Well, that's right. That was what I was saying. Like,
let's say I underperform. But
if there was some control factor there, like, hey, listen, because I'm working here, your value has gone up, right? That would feel a little bit better. But one of the challenges I have, and I want to dig into this a little deeper, it's a challenge I suspect the industry has, and the fear that the industry has of shifting gears is like, well, okay. What's a better model, right, for serving clients? Because in order to have advisors willing to be in this business, they feel like they need to make good money. And if they're, let's just use the 100 basis points, 1%. All right, well, if I've got $10 million under management, I've got $100,000 of revenue, right? So I need $10 million to make $100,000. And $100,000 feels like, I'm a reasonable professional making a reasonable living, and then hopefully growing from there. If I can't make, that kind of money, let's just say that $10 million has, I don't know, let's call it 20 clients. You know what I mean? I don't know, take your math. Man, I'm going to need a lot of clients if I'm going to change my model, or I'm going to have to charge a fee. Like, what are some viable models, I guess?
Why do you need a ton of clients? Because let's say the right fee for that client would have been 100 units of whatever size the client is at 1%. Well, why don't you charge them that same fee with the 3% escalator, which is what we put on there for wage inflation effectively. So the fee, it's not a function of what the dollar amount is. It's a function of what the drivers are. Because as soon even if you're charging the exact same fee, which arguably we start out doing, I have a different set of conflicts, or my only conflict really is that fee negotiation with them. Once that's over, I have no conflicts. I just represent them. And I'll give you probably the easiest example. You go to a large financial institution and you're a client there and you have $10 million there. And you say, hey, you know what? I got a $3 million mortgage. It's 6 or 7%. I think I'm going to pay it off. So I'm going to sell out, get me $3 million. I'm going to pay it off. The advisor's like, oh, that's going to suck because now I'm going to lose 30% of my revenue.
Right.
No, client. I have this line of credit that we can give you, which I get paid on, by the way. And you can keep your money in the market, which I get paid on, by the way. And even though you said you'll sleep at night having your mortgage paid off, it's better for me, me, if you don't pay it off.
Yeah.
So why don't you do this other thing that's really good for me, you, and do that. As opposed to going, you know what? It's a push after tax, whether you're in the market or there. If you're going to sleep better at night, pay it off. I don't care. I get paid the same fee either way. My job is to give you advice.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do. How how do you recommend advisors structure that fee then? Is it based on buckets of services provided? Is it like, okay, so if you're, or is it just like a comprehensive, like, hey, here's a comprehensive financial advisory, financial planning fee? What are your thoughts on the way to structure it? Because I can just hear advisors going like, obviously, everybody likes the gravy train, but I also think the industry is starting to wake up to the fact that this is coming, whether they like it or not. Like, there is going to be fee for service.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Here we go. We got a fee calculator.
Okay.
And I'm happy to explain the math, but you say a client's got $50 million in net worth. Oops. $50 million in net worth. Let's say they got 10 million in liquidity and they need oversight, financial planning, some estate planning. They've got complexity. I got a bunch of alternatives, or I want, reporting in primary colors listed A to Z backwards, or it's me and my sibling. So, it's two of us. So we've got all these factors you can put in here, or you're willing to make it super simple with a robo program. You get a discount and it tells you the fee. So there's no negotiation. There's no discussion. Yeah. Happy to share the math. The math is basis points in each category to a cap. And then there's a very tiny basis point fee on top of it for risk. Because if you make a mistake on a large account, it's obviously a bigger issue than if you make a mistake on a small account. So I just pull it up and I send them the link. I mean, you can play with it and decide what you want me to do. If you only want me to handle this, we'll handle this. You want me to do this, we'll do that. You only want me to do investment, we'll only do investment. I don't care. Yeah. Just pay a fair fee for the service that you want and choose the services you need.
Now, have you found that prospective clients go and shop that with other people? Or is it one of the assumptions I have in this industry, and I haven't been proven false yet, but I'm sure there are cases where it's not, is that most clients aren't doing all that much shopping, to be honest with you. They're unless they're coming off a relationship where, like, I've had it with this advisor, he or she is just terrible or not paying attention to me. For the most part, when they land in your office or having a conversation with you, they're like, hey, Steve, I'm ready to do business, right? So what's it like to work with you?
Are you from Austin or did you move to Austin?
I moved to Austin.
How'd you find your primary doctor?
That's a great question.
Asked a couple friends.
Probably, maybe ask. Like? Yeah, it's probably that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The blind leading the blind. Well, your friends have no idea whether it's a good doctor or not. They just know if they have a good bedside manner. That's how people find their advisors. I got a guy for you. He's great. Yeah. He takes me to Laker games. We play golf at LA Country Club. The dude's awesome. You'll love him.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally says on our website, I'm not taking you to a Laker game. I'm not going to be your friend. My job is to be your financial advisor. But that's the problem with this industry is it's a social industry. And it's not until you have brain cancer or some major thing that you start doing real diligence on your doctors. And the problem is most people take their financial life, they don't take it seriously enough. They care about it, but they don't want to do the diligence. And by the way, they don't even know the questions.
Right.
I actually published, and I'm happy to share with you and your folks, a set of questions and an answer key that you should use when looking for an advisor. And it's stuff that people would never know to ask, but that are important things to make sure they have a real business, understand their conflicts of interest, how they get paid, what licenses they have, what their continuity program is, how, et cetera. So there's a lot in there. And now you sell your business and you have $100 million and that's the equivalent of having brain cancer. And you're like, I'm going to do my research now. And then we're usually at the client size that I serve, we're usually in bake-offs. It still doesn't stop people. I met a guy this morning, I'm working on a guy, he's worth $1 billion. And I quoted him a fee and he asked for like 50% off of that fee because he's not comfortable. I was like, first of all, I can generate the value in about 15 minutes. 10 times over. But no, I'm not going to work for that. My fee is my fee. You don't discount your brain surgeon.
I'm thoroughly convinced that there is a population of people that are like, always ask for a discount. You never know where you're going to get it. Just always ask, right? Hey, can I get 50% off. We were pitching a client not too long ago. Same thing. Can we have this discount? Like, no, I know you're making lots of, what are you talking about? This is going to produce a lot of revenue for you. But
I don't ask for discounts because I don't like to be treated that way.
Yeah.
I'll decide whether the fee is appropriate or not. So I say, you tell me whatever you think's appropriate, and then it's my job to decide if it's fair or not try and grind people down.
That's right. So, yeah. We started touching on it a little bit of like, hey, look, this is the way the business is going. Whether people like it or not, people might be like, hey, look, maybe it'll happen after I'm long gone from the industry. But I think you're right. I think you're onto something where it's going to be, prices are going to come down from the AUM model and get into a more structured, this is the fee you pay for the services you're looking to get. And there will be a risk model. I love the fact that you've included that because like there is some risk. If I'm touching your money and God forbid we make a mistake, it's going to be on me. So I got to make sure that I cover that risk. It's the reason why your credit card, swiping a credit card, they charge a fee. It's not just the fee for moving money. It's like what happens if it's fraud? The consumer whose card got stolen doesn't eat that. We eat that. We have to cover that somehow in here. Yeah. But I want to dive into AI and tokenization because in our prep call, you talked a little bit about it and you are not alone in this, but you have a very strong conviction that this is going to revolutionize this industry a lot. And it's already kind of starting to move that way. And I think a lot of folks are still kind of trying to figure out like how though, right? Like how is AI truly going to transform wealth management? Is it really? Because, it's a relationship-based business. Steve and I have known each other. I take them to the Laker games, that type of stuff. Like, how is this going to affect my business? I can't see it. I get my business from referrals, like you say, right? Nobody's searching for me on the internet. I mean, maybe they go validate me, but for the most part, like how is AI going to change all that type of stuff? So maybe we start there. What are you seeing in the relative near future that AI is going to change the landscape for financial advisors? How do you think it's going to change?
Well, so I was going to ask you over what duration. So short term, which you asked, I think it'll be the exoskeleton, like I used that example with Vanilla, where today I use AI Note Taker. Makes my job exponentially easier. I don't miss stuff. It tells me what to do. I can go back and ask it questions. Yeah. So I can do more with less, pay attention in different ways. The next evolution of that is not only is it always on, but it's pulling information from the client and generating opportunities inside your CRM or your financial planning software or your estate planning software, because you may have referenced, and I missed it, that, hey, listen, someone's talking to me about my business, but who knows if anything's going to happen to that. I may have missed that, but that's a big deal that might say we should do some planning around that. Or, I'm getting cashed out of my options at work. So there's stuff to do there. So I think AI will help us avoid missing things and identify opportunities. It already reads so much for me, contract negotiation, questions, things like Notebook LM. So I've got, for one client, we bought a sliver of an NBA team and I had all the documents in Notebook LM. And then as things would come up during the legal process, I could just ask Notebook LM a natural language question and I had the answer before anybody else. And it identifies a section of the document so you can fact check it because LLMs aren't perfect. So I just think we're going to be able to be much more effective and much more efficient as advisors in the short term. Very different answer than my long-term ansser, but
let's hear the long-term answer now. That's a good teaser. I like it. Yeah.
10 years ago, I did a presentation for the Vanguard FAS execs, which I still use today because it's still completely applicable. And in it, I used advising as a GPS, or a GPS as an advising analogy. You have to know where you are. You got to know where you're going. What's the most efficient way to get there? I'm going from here to there. Do I have to cross water? Am I bringing an elephant with me? Like all these things that go into how do I make my decision around what makes the most sense. But I also used what has now become Waymo, Google's autonomous driving. They were just starting to test it. And they also were just testing their chatbot where it would make appointments for you and do things like that. And it would say, and it had natural language. And if you don't have a paid chat GPT, you should. And if you go all the way to the right, there's a little black like voice thing and you click it and you talk to chat GPT, it talks to you like a human. And it has the colloquialisms of a human. And I'm invested in a company called Noble that same thing. Their AI, it's all voice chatbot. They serve, for example, if you go on the Ford app for service, you're talking to their chatbot. You think you're talking to a human, and most everyone listening has probably talked to a decent chatbot by now. So it can nail emotions. It understands way more information than we ever will. It can consume everything. Yeah. In fact, Grok 5 has allegedly read every printed word that is out there. And so all of that is in its RAM effectively. It's accessible to the AI. It never tires. It can service 1 billion clients at the same time. Like, other than you can bring your AI to a Lakers game. It's not going to bring you. It's going to be in your pocket. So unless you really want someone to hang out with and a human, AI is going to blow us out of the water. Ultimately.
Well, it's so funny, the impact of that, right? Of having AI do all the things you just described there is the reason why what we were just talking about, like, well, AUM models are going to come down. We've talked about for the last 15, 20 years, people have been talking about fee compression and been a little nervous about it and whatever. And it was always around the passive assets, bringing fees down. Like, why would you spend, 75 basis points for an actively managed fund when you can get, 6 basis points over here on a Vanguard fund or whatever that was, right? That we had those discussions for a long time. And then people tried to bring that up to the advisor level, but people are like, you know what? Less resistance from the clients on fees than you think. This might change it all, though. Because as you and I were talking in prep, you've got the next generation of people is getting their start investing on their phone. And they're doing it, whether it's a Robinhood or whatever, it doesn't matter what the tool that they're using, but they're very comfortable in that environment, not talking to a human being. And they're continuously being prompted with chatbot conversations or voiced chat type of things. As they accumulate real money, that'll be still there and it'll be better, right? So this will be their conversation they're having.
There's a trust thing and a knowledge thing. And, this pattern happens over and over. It happened with the car. People weren't getting in cars. Horses made a lot more sense than cars. I'm not getting that thing. It's a death trap. It's a flying an airplane.
Right.
That makes no sense now. Now that's common. So you're right. And COVID only made it better for the technology because that generation, the folks that are, my son's 25. He fortunately is in office, my younger son. But the ones that are still working from home that really don't have the social engagement or didn't have the social engagement and never went back to work are very accustomed to dealing with this medium and their phone. And so at some point there is an acceptance. My wife didn't want to go in a Waymo. I prefer a Waymo. It's clean. I don't have to talk to anybody. I control the temperature and the music. Way better than Uber.
That's funny.
So that's at some point, it just people will get used to it. It's going to happen. The questions.
Yeah. And on the positive side, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom here. On the positive side, one of the challenges advisors have had for years is like, how do I serve lower value clients? How do I serve the children and the grandchildren of my affluent client? Well, as these tools get a little bit better and they get democratized and get into your hands, you're going to be able to introduce that younger client like, hey, listen, we provide high quality, full service, comprehensive advice for people regardless of how much money you have. Let us help you out with that credit card debt, student loan debt, all these types of things. We can actually give you real answers here. We charge a fee, of course. But because you don't have to do all the heavy lifting as an advisor and spend 15 hours of real, genuine research and analysis trying to help out a 22-year-old kid who's making $40,000 a year, who has no money, has more debt than they make it, right? Oh, great. This is fine. I can actually do this. I can actually make a real living doing this because I I know what to ask the LLM, right? I know what to ask the chatbot to get the right answers.
But you won't even need to.
Yeah.
Is the point.
Oh, yeah.
And so to me, it's not doom and gloom. It's super exciting. And I think it will, there's a place for the Citadels of the world, the folks that have an edge, if you will. They're just few and far between. And it's hard to find those that repeat, and then they become inaccessible anyway to Joe Bag of Donuts.
Yeah.
And there will be a place for really good humans where a human is appropriate. But for the most part, if you haven't upped your game on technology, you're going to be out of the business. And I think it's going to happen faster than people think.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. If you go to the advisor conferences, you'll see trends. One that was over the last couple of years was data warehousing. Everybody needed to have a data lake, data warehouse, that type of stuff. Like all of the things that I use in my business need to be able to talk to each other, and I need to own the data, right? So that it's my client's data, and then they have that, not some other amorphous firm or whatever. Made a lot of sense. I suspect this is going to be one, because at some point in time, you're going to see top performers at large organizations lose some clients or whatever. And those clients will have jumped ship for an AI powered tool.
Yeah.
And that'll be,
unless they haven't adopted them themselves and created the right leverage. And by the way, you're touching on tokenization, because
yes, I want to get into tokenization. Yeah.
As soon as everything is portable and accessible and digestible. So, I envision a dashboard. I log in, just like I might log in my Google dashboard, and I can turn on this advisor, or this broker, that broker, who can see my data. Think of it as your health records, right? Yeah. Here are my health records, and I've switched from this doctor to that doctor. So I'm going to turn off access from the doctor I'm leaving and turn on access from the doctor I'm going to. And it's important that all your medical records are in one place. They're easy to understand, they're uniform, and that you control them, because they're your medical records and they're essential for you to maintain your body. Finance is no different. Yeah. So today, all the institutions put a wall around the data. Oh, you're switching from advisor A to advisor B, and you're in e-money, and you want to switch to Money Guide Pro or Right Capital. Sorry, you got to start over.
Right.
We're unfortunate. So, you were this attorney and now you go into that, you got to start over. Isn't that unfortunate? And it's a big hassle that keeps people there. There will be a data revolution where somebody starts thinking, let's say the way I think, and says, hey, your data, anytime you want. In fact, right now, your basis obviously goes, if you do an ACAT, and has to by law, but it should be much, much easier to move everything around. And that is tokenization, that all the data is just out there in the ether, and you have the keys to encrypt it and manage who sees it and doesn't see it. It's very manageable.
I love the way you articulated that. I haven't heard anybody put it that way. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad we covered this topic, because people hear tokenization and they're like, I don't even know what that means. And I don't know how it's going to impact me, or what the value of it would be for me, or as a client and or as an advisor, right? Where could this value? But the way you articulate is, hey, listen, this is like having a Google Doc, and you choose who has permissions to see it, and you can see all what it looks like today. But you could also go back and track all the changes, because I can go back and say, show changes, to show edits, right? Yep. Great. I have all the history. Why? Because it's my Google Doc. I created the Google Doc, and I invited Steve to come, and I invited Casey or whoever else to join in on this Google Doc. And at some point in time, I'm like, hey, sorry, Casey, I don't want you to have access anymore, because she's changed teams. I don't know what the reason, but she's no longer, her changes didn't disappear. She just can no longer see and make edits to the doc, right? Exactly. They're still there. That is a wonderful way of articulating. And if you're a client thinking about that, like, this is pretty awesome. And heck, also, if you're an advisor thinking about your business, that's great too, because you see a lot of advisors jump from one independent broker dealer to another, or they go RIA or whatever. Similar thing, right? Being able to take your business.
Well, it's great if you're a good advisor. So I mean, but if you think about it this way, you can demonstrate value, and the clients go with you, so you can optimize the outcome for you and the client.
Right.
If you're not a good advisor, your clients can flee, or leave very, very easily. And as things become more automated and the friction is reduced, the ability and the transient nature of clients will start to increase proportionally. And that's where I think the future is that it's going to be easy to move. It's going to be easy to identify who's adding value.
Yeah.
All the software we're buying today will be available for free effectively online. Our AI is going to do all of it. And I'm wearing this is the same thing I talked about probably 15 years ago when I first invested in Betterment. I wear Whoop, I wear a Garmin, all my data, my bed measures how I sleep. Like if
you're the sleep number guy. You're the one who bought the sleep number.
Eat sleep. I love it.
Okay.
So my phone can know if I'm reading the news or the stock market, measure how my body from sweat, from pulse, from blood pressure reacts, and can help give me advice and recommendations on what to do or not do. The math part's easy. The place that people always say, well, you can't replace a human when it comes to emotion. Bullshit. The data is there. The data is better. I mean, the AI will be better than we will be.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I kind of made that joke when we were doing the prep call. I'm like, humans can see reactions and you're like, no, it can already. And it's true. It's like human beings only make so many faces, right?
Yeah.
Like we there's a variety of different types of smiles. There's a variety of different types of frowns or whatever. Like over time, a computer watching your face long enough will be able to decide, is Steve grumpy, not digging this? Is he happy? What's going on? Like it will eventually be able to, and to your point, if it has access to data, like, via your smartwatch or whatever other type of wearable you get going on there, it could also start to know like, hey, let's cut it short. Steve's getting hangry. He hasn't eaten since, 9 a.m. or something like that.
Last week, there was an article, I think in either the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, about someone who had committed suicide and had been talking to their AI as their therapist.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And then today, OpenAI announced that they were putting more guardrails in to identify people who are struggling with mental health issues. And so you can see where this goes. And if they can do that and identify, everything's all pattern recognition, and identify the patterns, again, take it back to medical, which I think is always the best analogy. Radiologists right now are probably the most at risk because AI is identifying things that are imperceptible to the human eye.
Yeah.
And they're all running radiology through AI. And at some point, it probably will replace radiologists to a certain point. There are imperceptible things to a human that will arise via your voice inflection, the way you type, the time of day, the length of your message. It's all pattern recognition where they'll be able to say, this is someone who's having an emotional issue, potentially a mental issue. And it's no different for investments.
It's wild. It's wild stuff. So I know we're at the end of our time together, but I have one more fun question, a piece of advice, if you will, or guidance, wisdom you might be willing to share. Like, you've had a very innovative career, right? You've been an advisor, been in insurance, and you've ensconced yourself in a lot of other innovative companies where you've invested and so forth. Not every advisor is going to be like you, right? They're not going to create the next vanilla.
Lucky them.
Right? But like, not everybody is, right? We kind of set the stage earlier that most advisors, got their start as salespeople, and they've built a book of business and they're making a good recurring revenue, and awesome stuff. And then there are, obviously some advisors who are really good at providing comprehensive financial advice for their clients, and other ones who are just in it for the buck, right? How would you recommend that advisors approach innovating in their business going forward? If you were an advisor listening to this show, and kind of take yourself out of your current existence, and you say, I'm an average advisor, I need to innovate starting here in 2025 when we're recording this, what would your recommendations be?
I mean,
that's
we're just see that because you can build workspaces effectively, and I'm in multiple AI tools, but the one I use most frequently is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And in there, I've got different workspaces. And so, and then they again have been trained to how to answer my questions and how I think and have my voice, et cetera. So communicating with it about where I'm struggling, what questions, the more questions you ask, the more patterns it can create and recognize. And I think that will help them innovate. The investment part has been just pure luck, where I caught a great tailwind in fintech and, I was able to identify some folks who were either timely or much smarter than I am and ride that tailwind. But in terms of just overall thinking about the business, ask it the hard questions. So if you're scratching your head going, oh, I want an AUM model, should I consider a fee model? That's a great thing to talk to your LLM about and feed it the information so it can help you make the decision, because it's not emotional. You are. So that's my short answer, is start having a dialogue. If you're not talking to your chatbot, and just remember, it's a chatbot, it's not a human. You should be, and feeding it information so it can start to find the patterns.
It's great. I still do use please and thank you, though. I can't stop, and I won't, because I know I'm going to send you an email.
You're the one driving the costs up.
That's right. That's
why energy is so expensive.
Over time, costs will come down, I'm sure. But I can't. I don't want to get out of the habit. I'm still going to be a please and thank you guy. I always will be. All right.
Well, and you got to tell your AI not to be so nice to you, because
maybe
that's a genius idea. That's a fantastic idea. Let me expand upon it instead of you're an idiot. I'm tell you how you do this better.
This is stupid. This is not true. Exactly. This is awesome. Well, Steve Lockshin, people can find you at AdvicePeriod.com, correct?
Yep.
And then justvanilla.com is the vanilla. You're on LinkedIn. Where else are you hanging out, and how can people follow along with all the awesomeness you're doing?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Fantastic. Well, this has been great. Thank you for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it.
That was fun. Thanks. Time went really fast.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Steve Lockshin, for coming on the show and sharing his insights and wisdom and, frankly, his opinions and, beliefs about what is in store for the future of this industry. We need more folks like Steve who are willing to push the envelope, and they're not afraid to kind of make the changes before the world tells them they have to. So great stuff. Love having Steve on the show. As I mentioned at the top of the show, please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform. And be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. See ya.